High Commander Zextal stood at the observation deck of the Galactic Defense Academy's most prestigious training facility, their crystalline exoskeleton reflecting the light of 3 setting suns. All 4 of their sensory appendages were focused on the approaching transport ship, which looked absurdly primitive compared to the sleek vessels usually docked at Fortress Alpha. The ship carried the first batch of human cadets ever admitted to the Academy. After their species' recent discovery and subsequent alliance with the Galactic Federation, humans had earned the right to send their best to train alongside the galaxy's elite. What troubled Zextal was how they had earned this right, through a series of military engagements that defied conventional tactical analysis. High Commander, the human transport is requesting final docking clearance, announced Sub-Instructor Vril, their bioluminescent patches pulsing with nervous energy. Granted, Zextal replied, trying to maintain their professional composure. And have the medical bay ready. I've read their gravity requirements. They'll likely need immediate assistance after experiencing our standard docking procedures. The transport ship, however, executed a perfect landing maneuver that even veteran pilots would envy. As the docking clamps engaged, Zextal's secondary sensory stalks twitched in surprise. The ship had compensated for Fortress Alpha's 2.3 standard gravity with remarkable precision. The airlock cycled and outstepped 12 human cadets. They actually walked, in the high gravity as if they were taking a casual stroll. Their soft, vulnerable-looking bodies showed no sign of strain. Leading them was a human female who, according to the briefing materials, was called Sarah Chin. Cadet First Class Chin, reporting with Earth's first training contingent, sir. She snapped to attention, her 11 companions following suit with perfect synchronization. Zextal's color-sensing patches detected no signs of distress in their strange, reddish-pink skin tones. This defied everything they had been told about human physiological limitations. Welcome to Fortress Alpha, Zextal managed, their translator working overtime to convey the proper formality. I trust your journey was comfortable? A slight curve appeared on Chen's mouth, what humans called a smile. Very comfortable, sir. Though we were hoping for a bit more challenge in the approach vector. We heard Fortress Alpha was the toughest training facility in the galaxy. Several of Zextal's junior instructors rippled their color patches in what humans would interpret as gasps. No newly arrived cadet had ever dared to suggest that the facility's notorious approach course was anything less than grueling. You'll find plenty of challenges here, Cadet Chin, Zextal replied, their formal education patterns shifting to warning hues. Your species may have impressed the Federation with your unconventional tactics, but Fortress Alpha has been training the galaxy's finest warriors for 10,000 cycles. Our methods are proven. That's why we're here, sir, Chin responded, that curious smile still in place. To learn from the best and maybe share a few perspectives of our own. As they led the human cadets on the traditional orientation tour, Zextal noticed something odd. While cadets from other species typically spent their first tour gawking at the facility's impressive technology, the humans were asking surprisingly specific questions about emergency protocols, structural design, and defense systems. Sir, one cadet, designated Martinez, asked, these gravity generators, they're quantum-locked, right? What happens if they experience a sudden power surge? Before Zextal could remind the cadet that such information was restricted, another human, Patel, chimed in. And these atmospheric scrubbers, they're processing some interesting gas mixtures. Are they calibrated for all known biochemistries, or just Federation standard? It was at that moment that Zextal realized these humans weren't just asking random questions, they were systematically analyzing every system they encountered. Their seemingly scattered queries were building a comprehensive understanding of Fortress Alpha's capabilities and potential vulnerabilities. The tour ended at the cadets' assigned quarters, designed to mimic Earth's gravity and atmosphere. To Zextal's surprise, Chin raised her hand. Sir, with respect, we'd prefer standard quarters. No environmental modifications needed. But the gravity, Vril began to protest. Is perfect for resistance training, Chin finished. If we're going to be protecting the galaxy alongside everyone else, we need to adapt to their conditions, not the other way around. As Zextal watched the humans settle into quarters designed for species that evolved in much higher gravity, they sent a private message to the Academy's High Council. First impressions of human cadets suggest previous tactical analyses may be severely underestimated, requesting immediate review of training protocols. These humans, they're different. That night, as Fortress Alpha's security systems ran their standard checks, they logged 12 human life signs in the high-gravity quarters, their vital signs steady and strong. In their report, Zextal added one final note. Traditional metrics may be insufficient for measuring human potential. Recommend immediate development of new evaluation standards. They had no idea just how prophetic those words would prove to be. Dawn arrived at Fortress Alpha with the usual military precision, but nothing else about this day would follow standard protocols. High Commander Zextal stood in the control center of the Academy's most advanced simulation chamber, watching as their staff made final adjustments to the legendary Harbinger Protocol, a training scenario that had humbled the galaxy's finest warriors for 5 centuries. All systems prepared for standard difficulty, High Commander, reported technical officer clicks, their sensory filaments vibrating with anticipation. No. Zextal's color patches shifted to decision mode. Set it to maximum difficulty. A wave of chromatic shock rippled through the control room staff. Maximum difficulty had never been used for first-year cadets. Even veteran instructors rarely attempted it. Sir, Sub-Instructor Vril ventured, the human physiology reports suggest they wouldn't survive the neural feedback at that level. They survived their quarters gravity without environmental support, Zextal responded. Let's see what else we've underestimated about them. The 12 human cadets entered the simulation chamber looking impossibly alert for their first morning at higher gravity. Chin led them, her eyes scanning the neural interface pods with obvious interest. Cadets, Zextal began, you're about to attempt the Harbinger Protocol. This simulation represents a worst-case scenario, defending a crucial installation against overwhelming odds. No species has ever completed it. The current survival record is 30 minutes, held by the Arcturian Elite Guard. Martinez raised his hand. Sir, what constitutes completion? Survival is measured in. No, sir, Martinez interrupted, earning shocked color changes from the alien staff. What's the win condition? There must be one, or it wouldn't be a valid training scenario. Zextal's sensory stalk straightened in surprise. In 500 years, no one had ever asked that question. Technically, eliminating all enemy forces would constitute a victory, but that's impossible. The simulation generates endless waves of increasingly difficult opponents. The humans exchanged glances that Zextal was beginning to recognize as significant. Chen spoke up, request permission to attempt the scenario as a full squad, sir. Another unprecedented request. The Harbinger Protocol was designed for individual performance evaluation. That would require significant modifications to the neural interface system, Clicks protested. The feedback harmonics weren't designed for multiple simultaneous human connections. We can handle it, Patel said, already examining the nearest interface pod. These are quantum synchronized, right? Similar to the gravity generators? We can modify the phase variance to accommodate multiple users. The entire control room fell silent. That level of technical understanding shouldn't have been possible for a first-year cadet from a newly discovered species. Very well, Zextal decided, their curiosity overriding standard procedure. You have 1 hour to modify the system. If your changes are approved by technical officer clicks, you may attempt the scenario as a group. What followed was unlike anything the Academy staff had ever witnessed. The humans worked with synchronized efficiency, each seemingly knowing their role without discussion. Patel and 2 others reconfigured the neural interfaces while the rest studied the simulation parameters with intense focus. Sir, Chin approached Zextal as her team worked. Is there a requirement that we stay within the designated defense perimeter? The simulation measures your ability to defend the installation, Zextal replied carefully. Leaving the defense zone would constitute an automatic failure. Chen's face showed that curious smile again. But if we eliminated all enemy forces before they reached the perimeter, that's not. Zextal's color patches swirled in confusion. The scenario generates enemies based on defensive positioning. There's no way to engage them before they reach the combat zone. Unless we change what constitutes a defensive position, Chin replied cryptically, then returned to her team. An hour later, the modified neural interface system had passed all safety checks, though Clix admitted they didn't fully understand some of the changes the humans had made. The 12 cadets took their positions in the pods, their vital signs displaying on the control room monitors. Beginning Harbinger Protocol, maximum difficulty, Zextal announced, still unsure if they had made a terrible mistake. May the great architects protect you. Don't worry, sir. Chen's voice came through the comm system, accompanied by those unsettling human smiles on all 12 monitors. This is going to be interesting. As the simulation began, Zextal couldn't shake the feeling that they were about to witness either a spectacular failure or something that would change the Academy forever. They had no idea just how right they were about to be proven. The simulation initialized, materializing the famous last stand scenario that had challenged warriors for centuries. A critical quantum communications array sat atop a heavily fortified hill, surrounded by automated defense systems and shield generators. In moments, the system would begin generating waves of increasingly difficult enemy forces. But the humans didn't take defensive positions. They didn't even look at the fortifications. What are they doing? Vrill's color patches flashed in alarm as all 12 human signatures moved rapidly away from the installation. Zextal watched in fascination as the human cadets split into 4 groups of 3, each heading in different directions. According to their vital signs, they were running at full speed in 2.3 gravity as if it were nothing more than a light workout. Sir, Chen's voice crackled through the comm, quick question about the enemy spawn algorithms. They're based on standard hegemony tactical doctrine, correct? Before Zextal could respond, the first wave of enemy forces began materializing at their designated points. Normally, this would trigger a desperate defensive action. Instead, the humans seemed to ignore them completely. Team 2, confirm visual on primary generator complex, Martinez reported. Patel, you're going to love this. They're using Mark III quantum oscillators. Remember that bypass you theorized? Uploading specs now, Patel's voice was filled with what Zextal was learning to recognize as human excitement. Teams 1 and 4, the command and control nodes will be exactly 2.3 kilometers from their forward positions. Standard hegemony spacing. In the control room, Technical Officer Clix's appendages waved in agitation. They can't possibly know that. Those calculations took our best tacticians decades to decode. But the humans had already moved beyond theory. Team 3, led by Chin, had somehow managed to circle behind the first wave of enemy forces. Instead of engaging them, they were systematically marking points on their tactical displays. Sir, Chen called out, your simulation's enemy generation follows standard hegemony protocols perfectly. Thank you for confirming. Zextal hadn't confirmed anything, but they realized the humans had just used their first wave of questions to test their theories about the simulation's fundamental architecture. The next series of events happened so fast that the control room's monitoring system struggled to keep up. Team 2, after reaching what seemed like an arbitrary position, began a complex sequence of actions that made no tactical sense. Until, suddenly, it did. Primary generator complex bypassed, Patel announced calmly. Redirecting power surge to secondary nodes. Now. Across the simulated battlefield, crucial enemy spawn points began flickering. The carefully programmed waves of opposition forces started materializing in incomplete formations, their command and control structures disrupted before they could fully form. That's impossible, Clix exclaimed. The simulation's base code is brilliant, Chin interrupted, but it follows predictable patterns. Just like the hegemony tactics it's based on. Team 4 hit the command nodes. Team 1, ready for Phase 2. The human cadets moved with devastating efficiency, exploiting weaknesses in the simulation that no one had ever noticed because they were so fundamental to hegemony military doctrine that they had become invisible. They're not just fighting the simulation, Zextal realized aloud, their color patches shifting to the rare pattern indicating profound revelation. They're deconstructing the entire system. Wave after wave of simulated enemies appeared, each more disrupted than the last. The humans had somehow turned the simulation's escalating difficulty against itself, using the increased power requirements of stronger enemies to overload the very systems generating them. Final phase, Chin announced, and all 12 humans converged on points that formed a perfect geometric pattern around the quantum communications array. Initiating synchronized bypass on my mark. 3, 2, 1. The simulation froze. Then, to the astonishment of everyone in the control room, every enemy unit on the battlefield disappeared simultaneously. The quantum communications array stood untouched, its defensive systems still at full power, having never been tested. Total elapsed time, 18 minutes and 27 seconds. Installation secured, sir, Chin reported with that now familiar smile. Request permission to end simulation. For the first time in their long career, High Commander Zextal was speechless. Their color patches cycled through patterns that hadn't been seen in the Academy for generations, the chromatic equivalent of complete bewilderment. Finally, they found their voice. Permission granted, Cadet Chin. Though I suspect, secured, doesn't quite capture what you've accomplished here. As the neural interfaces powered down and the humans began to exit their pods, Zextal turned to their staff. Call the High Council. What we've just witnessed changes everything we thought we knew about tactical training. In the simulation chamber below, the human cadets were already discussing improvements for their next attempt, as if rewriting 5 centuries of military doctrine was just another training exercise. News of what happened in the simulation chamber spread through Fortress Alpha like a quantum cascade. Within hours, the Academy's most senior instructors had assembled in the Grand Strategy Hall, their varied appendages and sensory organs all focused on the holographic replay of the human cadets' performance. High Commander Zextal stood before the assembled faculty, their exoskeleton now shifted to the formal patterns of academic discourse. What you're watching isn't just a victory. It's a complete paradigm shift in tactical thinking. The replay showed the humans' synchronized movements, but now overlaid with analytical data that revealed the true complexity of their strategy. What had appeared chaotic at first now displayed clear patterns, but patterns that no one in the room had ever considered possible. Look here, Sub-Instructor Vril pointed with 3 appendages. They didn't just break the simulation. They broke our entire understanding of defensive warfare. Every chaos pattern they introduced was mathematically precise. The senior combat analytics instructor, a Meridian named Exorval whose silicon-based brain could process millions of tactical scenarios simultaneously, raised their crystalline viewing array. They exploited a fundamental flaw in hegemony doctrine that we never saw because we were too close to it. The humans identified it within minutes. The hologram zoomed in on Chen's team as they executed their final maneuver. The geometric pattern they formed wasn't random. It perfectly mirrored the underlying quantum architecture of the simulation itself. But how? Demanded one of the older instructors, their bioluminescence pulsing with agitation. They're from a pre-quantum civilization. Their species hasn't even mastered basic gravity manipulation. That's exactly why they saw it, Zextal replied, their color patches shifting to teaching mode. They approached every system as something to be understood from first principles, not as established doctrine to be followed. The replay continued, now showing the neural interface modifications the humans had made. Technical Officer Clix had spent hours analyzing them and finally stepped forward to report. The changes they made to the neural interfaces weren't just to accommodate multiple users, Clix explained, projecting additional technical data. They modified the quantum harmonics to create a low-level neural network between all 12 cadets. They were functioning as a single distributed intelligence. A wave of chromatic shock rippled through the assembled instructors. Creating artificial neural networks was heavily regulated throughout the galaxy due to the risks involved. Yet these humans had casually established one using borrowed technology they'd never seen before. Most remarkably, Clix continued, they did it without any artificial intelligence assistance. Pure human neural plasticity, operating in high gravity, under maximum neural feedback loads. The recording reached its conclusion, showing the moment when all enemy forces vanished simultaneously. In slow motion, the instructors could now see that each human team had triggered their bypasses in a precisely calculated sequence, creating a cascade effect that propagated through the simulation's quantum substrate. They turned our own system's failsafes against us, Exorval observed, their crystalline structure vibrating with what might have been admiration. The simulation shut itself down because they convinced it that continuing would violate its core safety protocols. Zextal raised all 4 sensory stalks to command attention. The question before us now is not just how to adapt our training to accommodate human cadets. We must consider how to integrate their methodologies into our entire teaching paradigm. But their methods violate centuries of established tactical doctrine, protested one of the conservative instructors. Exactly, Zextal replied, their colors shifting to decision patterns. And in doing so, they've achieved what 500 years of following that doctrine could not. The humans didn't break our rules, they showed us why our rules were already broken. The Grand Strategy Hall erupted in discussion, with various faculty members projecting competing tactical analyses and theoretical models. But Zextal noticed something else on the replay, the expressions on the human cadets' faces throughout the exercise. They weren't just completing a mission. They were enjoying themselves. Perhaps, Zextal mused, drawing the room's attention again, that is the most important lesson. To these humans, the impossible isn't a barrier to be feared. It's a puzzle to be solved. And they solve it not despite their limitations, but because of them. The meeting continued late into the night, as the greatest military minds in the galaxy grappled with a new reality. Everything they thought they knew about warfare, about training, about the very nature of tactical thinking, had just been appended by 12 first-year cadets from a supposedly primitive world. The following weeks at Fortress Alpha witnessed unprecedented changes. The human cadets had not only forced a complete reassessment of the Academy's training methods, but had inadvertently sparked what some were calling the greatest revolution in military education since the founding of the Galactic Federation. High Commander Zextal stood at their usual position on the observation deck, but now they were watching something extraordinary, mixed species training groups attempting to replicate and build upon the humans' innovative tactics. The sight of crystalline meridians, exoskeletal Vextar, and various other species working alongside humans in high-gravity environments had become the new normal. Latest results from Training Group 7, Sir, Sub-Instructor Vril reported, their color patches glowing with excitement. They've managed to adapt the human's neural networking technique for non-mammalian brain patterns. The efficiency improvements are remarkable. Below them, a team of cadets was attempting a modified version of the Harbinger protocol. Instead of defending fixed positions, they moved in fluid formations that seemed to defy conventional tactical logic. Yet their success rates were higher than anything previously recorded. The humans call it thinking outside the box, Chen explained, joining them on the observation deck. She had been promoted to Special Tactical Advisor, another unprecedented move by the Academy. Though I admit, we're still trying to figure out how to translate that concept for species that think in non-cubic geometries. Zextal's color patches shifted to amusement. Your species' ability to find humor in complexity continues to surprise us, Advisor Chen. But the results speak for themselves. The training area below erupted in celebratory signals as another mixed team completed their objective. The humans' enthusiasm had proven contagious, with even the traditionally stoic Meridians now displaying emotional responses to success. The most significant change, Vril noted, reviewing performance data, isn't just in combat effectiveness. It's in how different species are learning to complement each other's natural abilities. They were right. Where once the Academy had focused on teaching each species to maximize their own inherent advantages, now they were seeing unprecedented combinations. Meridian crystalline processing power combined with human intuitive problem-solving. Vextar defensive capabilities enhanced by human aggressive tactics. We've had to completely rewrite the xenobiology curriculum, reported Dr. NXDL, the Academy's chief medical officer, joining their observation. Human adaptive capabilities are redefining what we thought possible for biological organisms. Their ability to function in high gravity is just the beginning. The medical data scrolling across their displays told an amazing story. Rather than suffering under Fortress Alpha's harsh conditions, the human cadets were actually getting stronger. Their bodies were adapting at rates that defied conventional xenobiological models. It's not just physical adaptation, Chin added, pulling up additional training data. Every species here has something unique to teach. We're learning as much from them as they are from us. A commotion from the training area drew their attention. A mixed team had just completed the newly modified Harbinger protocol in record time, using a combination of meridian computational accuracy, Vexstar defensive formations, and human unpredictability. The Academy board meets tomorrow, Zextal announced, their color patches shifting to formal patterns. They'll be voting on the proposed curriculum changes. Full integration of human tactical methodologies across all training programs. Any opposition? Chin asked, though her smile suggested she already knew the answer. None, Zextal replied. The results are undeniable. In just a few weeks, our combat readiness metrics have improved by factors we hadn't thought possible. The real challenge now is keeping up with the rate of innovation. As if to emphasize their point, alarms suddenly blared from the training area. Another team had found an entirely new way to complete their objective, one that hadn't even been considered possible. Correction, Vril announced, their patches flickering with what might have been laughter. They didn't just complete it. They improved it. They're already teaching the modifications to the next group. Zextal watched as humans and aliens collaborated, shared ideas, and pushed the boundaries of what was possible. The old rigid hierarchy of military training was transforming into something far more dynamic and effective. Perhaps, they mused, this is what the Federation has been waiting for. Not just new tactical doctrines, but a new way of thinking about cooperation itself. The revolution in teaching at Fortress Alpha was just the beginning. The galaxy was about to discover that when humans said something was possible, it usually was, even if it took breaking every rule in the book to prove it. One standard galactic year after the arrival of the first human cadets, Fortress Alpha hosted an event unprecedented in its history, a graduation ceremony ahead of schedule. The Grand Assembly Hall, usually reserved for formal military ceremonies, was filled with representatives from every spacefaring species in the Federation. High Commander Zextal stood at the podium, their exoskeleton gleaming with ceremonial markings, addressing the assembled dignitaries and cadets. The 12 human cadets sat in the front row, their newly designed uniforms incorporating elements from various galactic military traditions. Today marks not just the graduation of an exceptional class, Zextal began, their color patches radiating formal pride, but the beginning of a new era in galactic military cooperation. What started as an experimental program has become the template for the future. Holographic displays around the hall showed training footage, humans and aliens working together in perfect synchronization, solving problems that had once been thought impossible, creating new tactical doctrines that combine the best aspects of all species. The statistics speak for themselves, continued Zextal, projecting the data for all to see. Overall combat effectiveness across all training programs has increased by 300%. Casualty projections in simulated conflicts have decreased by 78%. Cross-species cooperation metrics have reached levels previously thought theoretically impossible. Chin, now wearing the insignia of both Earth's military and the Galactic Federation, stood to present the team's findings. What we've learned here goes beyond military applications, she explained. Every species has unique perspectives, unique solutions. The key isn't just combining our strengths, it's learning to see through each other's eyes. The presentation showed how human intuitive problem-solving had been successfully merged with meridian logical processing, how Vexstar defensive doctrines had been revolutionized by human aggressive tactics, how dozens of species had learned to work together in ways that amplified their natural abilities. But perhaps most importantly, Chin continued, we've learned that the impossible is often just the undiscovered. Every species here has capabilities that others once thought impossible. Together, we're not just stronger, we're capable of things none of us could have imagined alone. The Federation Council representatives shifted in their seats, their various biological and mechanical sensors processing the implications. The success at Fortress Alpha had already led to calls for similar integrated training programs throughout Federation space. Therefore, Zextal announced, their color patches shifting to their most formal configuration, by unanimous decision of the Academy Board and with full support of the Federation Council. Fortress Alpha will be redesignated as the Federation Center for Integrated Tactical Studies. All future classes will follow the new integrated training protocols developed here. The announcement triggered a wave of approval signals from the assembled dignitaries, everything from bioluminescent displays to crystalline harmonics to human applause. The sound of so many species expressing joy in their own unique ways created an unprecedented symphony. But this is just the beginning, Chen added, that characteristic human smile on her face. Each graduating class will build on what we've learned, find new ways to work together, solve new impossible problems. The possibilities are endless. As the ceremony concluded, Zextal watched the graduates, human and alien alike, celebrating together. Their color patches shifted to a pattern so rare it hadn't been seen in generations, hope for the future. In the years that followed, the story of how 12 human cadets revolutionized galactic military training became legend. But the real legacy wasn't just in tactical doctrine or training methods. It was in proving that the impossible was just a temporary state of mind, and that together, the species of the galaxy could achieve things none of them could have imagined alone. As new classes of cadets arrived at what was now called the Integration Academy, they were greeted by a new motto, written in every known language of the Federation: "The impossible is where we begin."